The 1990s were a magical time for toys in America. Remember those days when every trip to the toy store felt like an adventure? In the 90s, the toy industry was like a money-making machine, raking in billions of dollars in sales. From action figures to video games, there was something for everyone, and we couldn't get enough. And at the heart of it all was Toys R Us, the ultimate playground for kids and adults alike. Even though times have changed, the toy industry still has a huge cultural and economic impact. As of 2024, the toy industry's annual total economic impact in the United States has reached over $100 billion. But it's not just about the money the toy industry makes, it's about the unforgettable playtime memories. So, let's cherish those memories and talk about the most popular toys of the 1990s. Back in Christmas 1996, everyone was going crazy over Tycho's Tickle Me Elmo. This little doll was all about hugs, and when you gave it one, it giggled and buzzed. Ron Dubron, the brain behind this toy, got inspired by watching kids tickling each other at the park. Next thing you know, every kid wanted a Tickle Me Elmo, and every parent wanted to get their hands on one to make their kid happy. The doll originally sold for around $30, but on the resale market, people were asking for over $1,000 depending on how desperate people were feeling. Back then, online markets weren't as big, so people were putting up ads or flyers to sell them. Things got wild. There were stories of crazy fights breaking out in stores over the last Elmo on the shelf. Some poor Walmart worker even got seriously hurt in the chaos. People magazine even ran a story in January 1997 detailing the madness, like how this Walmart employee ended up with all sorts of injuries. But hey, the numbers speak for themselves. By the end of 1996, 1 million Elmos flew off the shelves. And by the next Christmas, they'd sold over 5 million. Crazy, right? Thankfully, nowadays you can just skip the in-store chaos and just hop on Amazon to snag one of those newer Elmo models. Next on our list is Furby from 1998. Remember those fuzzy, chatty little creatures from Tiger Electronics Inc. or technically Hasbro? They were everywhere. Furby started off speaking its own language, Furbish, but then it could magically learn English, and once it started saying "I love you," it was enough to tackle the hearts of kids and adults. In 1998 alone, they sold a whopping 1.8 million units, and the next year, they hit a mind-blowing 14 million. By the end of 3 years, Furby had sold a whopping 40 million units. And get this, later its creepy speech was translated in a total of 24 languages. Oh, and the coolest part? They could talk to each other. But hey, it also had security issues. When Furbies first hit the scene, there were some people worrying if these little creatures were secretly recording their conversations. Yeah, kind of like a mini spy. In fact, in 1999, some US intelligence agencies straight up banned them from their offices. They were afraid hackers could mess with them, making them reveal some sensitive information. And in 2017, there was a hack that leaked personal data from almost 500,000 app users connected to Furbies. But despite these security issues, Furbies is still hanging in there, influencing pop culture. Every few years, they roll out with new models, keeping the magic alive. Oh, and let's talk about Tamagotchi, those little virtual pets from the 90s. They were everywhere. Bandai dropped them in Japan in November 23, 1996, and then hit the United States on May 1st, 1997. They called them Tamagotchi, a mashup of tamago and tomodachi, which means egg friend in Japanese. Cute, right? The idea was to give kids a low-maintenance pet, something fun without all the hassle of a real pet. You didn't have to clean up actual poop or anything, but let us tell you, these virtual pets could be needy. They needed feeding, cleaning up after, and even medicine when they got sick. And get this, they were marketed as space aliens to check out life on Earth. They came in plastic cases to shield them from our strange atmosphere. Having one of these digital pets was practically a must for any 90s kid. I mean, who cared about homework when you had to keep your Tamagotchi alive, right? By June 1997, a whopping 10 million of them had flown off the shelves. Fast forward to today, and these Tamagotchis are decked out with all sorts of cool features, like connectivity options and more. But hey, they still rock that 90s vibe, keeping the nostalgia alive. And guess what? They're still selling like crazy. Can you believe that as of June 2023, they've sold over 91 million units worldwide? That's what we call staying power. Back in the 1990s, there was this awesome team of teenage superheroes called the Power Rangers. They were all about fighting bad guys and saving the world from total chaos. Originally, it all started with a Japanese show called Super Sentai, but then it got revamped for the American audience. And soon it became a huge deal everywhere. Kids couldn't get enough of these action figures. You could collect all your favorite Rangers and even recreate epic battles with a Megazord playset. And back in 1994, each of these figurines only set you back $10. The Power Rangers weren't just about action figures though. They had video games, board games, and even their own clothing line. It was like a whole universe of awesome stuff. And get this, in 2012 alone, they raked in a whopping $80 million in toy sales. Crazy, right? But here's the mind-blowing fact. Even after all these years, you can still grab a basic Power Rangers figurine for $10 on Amazon. Yeah, that's right, prices haven't budged since 1994. So, if you're feeling nostalgic or just want to join the fandom, you know where to go, right? The next on our list is Beanie Babies. They were all the rage in the mid-1990s, still in the hearts of collectors left and right. Ty Warner came up with these adorable stuffed animals in 1993, and boom, it was an instant hit. These soft, cuddly little toys with their unique designs became a popular item for both children and adults alike. Plus, they weren't exactly easy to find. Ty made sure to keep them in limited supply, which just fueled the frenzy even more. That's when Beanie Mania kicked in, and suddenly, adult collectors were convinced they could make their fortunes by investing in these tiny plush toys. Believe it or not, by 1999, Ty Warner's little creation had made him one of the richest guys on the planet. But then, as quick as it came, the craze faded away. Those retirement dreams people had pinned on Beanie Babies were shattered. Nowadays, you're more likely to stumble upon them at flea markets, tucked away in boxes of forgotten toys. But hey, don't count them out completely. The original 9 Beanie Babies still hold some value, especially the rare ones. Oh, and get this, even in 2021, those critters were still making waves. The people at the Action Network tracked it and found out that Gobblers the turkey sold for a whopping $24,000. Halo Bear and Princess Bear weren't far behind either. Crazy, right? But hey, in the end, the real winners are probably those kids who sweet-talked their parents into buying them all those cuddly toys. Now let's talk about Super Soaker, which was brought to life by Lonnie Johnson, an engineer way back in 1989. But get this, it wasn't intentional. Johnson was tinkering around at home in 1982, trying to make a better heat pump. You know, the thing that keeps your place warm or cool. Well, this experiment went a bit wild and water went flying everywhere. And just like that, the idea struck him. Hey, this could be one awesome squirt gun. So he started working on it, using PVC pipe, acrylic glass, and an empty soda bottle to create a prototype. Even though it looked a bit makeshift, that thing could send water up to almost 40 feet. Fast forward a bit, Johnson scored himself a US patent for his invention, simply calling it a squirt gun. The patent description is pretty technical, but basically, it's a fancy way of saying it's got a nozzle that sprays water real fast, a pump to pressurize air and water inside, and a trigger to make it all happen. Oh, and don't forget the space-age sound effects. Johnson even threw in a battery-powered circuit to make it sound like a futuristic ray gun when you blast it. At first, Johnson named his creation the Power Drencher, but he had to switch it up to Super Soaker due to some trademark issues. The first Super Soaker went on sale in 1990 when Lonnie Johnson teamed up with Laramie Corporation, who were all about making those affordable plastic toys and action figures. Laramie went all out with their advertising, and before you knew it, they sold a whopping 27 million Super Soakers in just 3 years, all for $10 each. Over the years, they kept tweaking the design, making the Super Soaker even better. They boosted how much water it could hold, changed up the way water shot out, and even made it shoot farther. Since then, both the Laramie Corporation and later Hasbro have sold over 200 million Super Soakers. Can you even imagine that many water guns? And with over 175 different versions, they've racked up sales of about $1 billion. That's a whole lot of soaking fun right there. Back to the early mid-90s, you couldn't go anywhere without seeing Pogs. McDonald's, Taco Bell, and even Blockbuster Video had their own versions for all the Pog enthusiasts out there. The whole Pogs craze actually traces its roots back to centuries-old Japanese game Menko, which Japanese immigrants introduced to Hawaii in the early 20th century. Originally, they used small ceramic pieces, but eventually they switched to milk bottle caps with images stamped on them, which evolved into what we know as Pogs. It wasn't until 1991 when a teacher named Blossom Galbiso made Pogs famous by introducing the game to schoolchildren in Hawaii. Soon after, by 1993, Pogs became a sensation on the mainland, with just about every image you could think of slapped onto a Pog. However, there was a little hiccup. Pog play was kind of like kid-sized gambling, leading to distractions in schools. Because of this, schools in the United States, Canada, Sweden, Iceland, Germany, the UK and Australia decided to ban Pogs. And just like that, the heyday of Pogs started to fade away. By the mid-90s, Pogs were old news, and other toys like Furbies were stealing the spotlight. The 90s craze fizzled out as quickly as it had burst into popularity. Alright, let's talk about the Nintendo 64, or N64 for short. N64 hit the scene back in 1996, dropping in Japan on June 23rd, then hitting North America on September 26th, and finally making its way to Europe and Australia on March 1st, 1997. Now, when this console came out, it caused quite the stir in the gaming world. One thing that really set the N64 apart was its funky controller. It's got this three-pronged design that just fits in your hand like it was made for it. And those buttons and joysticks placed just right for some intuitive gaming. It was like nothing we'd seen before, and it even influenced controllers that came after it. Now, if we talk about graphics, the N64 was packing some serious power with its 64-bit processor. Compared to the older consoles with their 16-bit graphics, this thing was like a whole new world. Developers could create games that were way more immersive and visually stunning. These games themselves, like Mario 64, The Legends of Zelda, Ocarina of Time, GoldenEye, 007 were the classics that defined a generation. They didn't just push the boundaries of gaming, they set the standard for what games could be. These days, you can find the consoles for pretty reasonable prices, from about $23 to around $117 on eBay. But hey, if you've got some of those classic games to go with it, you could really up the selling price. Speaking of games, if you happen to have a mint condition cartridge of Mario Kart 64 lying around in an unopened box, you might want to hold on to it. Private sellers are selling them for a whopping $757. Crazy, right? Back in 1994, Galoob released the Sky Dancers. You might have seen these flying dolls on TV or in books. They even had their own video game. But what really got people talking was that video where a girl lost her Flutterby fairy to a fireplace. Ballerina dolls with foam wings tucked under their arms, ready to launch, pull the string and whoosh, they spin up into the air, wings spreading wide. Pretty delicate, but dangerous. In 2000, they got pulled from shelves. Why? Well, they were causing a lot of injuries. Over 100 of them. Scratched eyes, broken teeth, you name it. But even though they disappeared from stores, they didn't vanish completely. If you held on to your Sky Dancers, you could sell them for a pretty few bucks. Originally sold for $8 to $25, now they can fetch up to $82 each. Back in the 1990s, if you were a kid, chances are you knew about Nickelodeon's FloGak. These were like the rock stars of playtime, keeping us entertained for hours. Floam was this cool bubble gag stuff that you could shape into anything you wanted, and it came in all these vibrant colours. Sure, it never quite looked as perfect as it did in the commercials, and man, did it stick to your fingers like crazy. But hey, it was a dream that came true for creative kids, until it dried out, that is. It was made by RoseArt in 2002, then again from 2004 to 2010 without the Nickelodeon branding, but in 2012, Floam made a comeback under Nickelodeon, alongside Gak and Slime. Now let's talk about Gak. It's this slimy, gooey stuff that Nickelodeon came up with, and let me tell you, it was both gross and ridiculously fun. There were all sorts of versions of Gak you could get, some even glowed in the dark or changed colours, and some had different scents. And then there's Floam, another one of Nickelodeon's creations, made from Gak, but with these tiny microbeads inside that made it foam up and mold even better. But guess what? They're back! Nickelodeon has brought back Floam and Gak, and they're better than ever. The new Floam is this amazing, reusable molding compound that you can shape into just about anything you can imagine. Seriously, the possibilities are endless. And as for the new Gak, it's stretchy, squishy, and totally collectible. You can squeeze it, stretch it, make bubbles with it. Once kids get their hands on Gak, they won't want to let go. So as we look back on the toys of the 90s, let's take a moment to cherish those nostalgic memories and the impact they had on our lives. Which one was your favourite toy? Let us know in the comments section below, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more video updates. Until next time, stay tuned.